Hi fellow bombers, this is Brian from Atomic-Moto and I'm here to do a review of the most technical and advanced off-road helmet on the planet, the 6D ATR-2. First, a little bit of background about 6D helmets, just in case you have not heard of them. 6D helmets was started by two very clever guys, Bob Weber and Robert Reisinger. And back in about 2012, they decided that they wanted to climb a really high mountain, basically, do something really cool, and that was to improve helmet technology. And they got together, did a bunch of research. Robert Reisinger is an engineer, and they realized that one of the keys to improving helmet performance when you strike the ground is protecting against angular acceleration. And I'll explain what that is a little bit later. But basically, it's a really important thing that happens when you smack your head on the ground. And they came up with an incredibly technical and very clever system for managing angular acceleration. And it is a system that I describe as rotational impact management. I'll dig into that. But first of all, I just wanted to give you some background and tell you a little bit about the company. Hitting the basics of the 6D ATR-2. Now this is an off-road helmet, this size extra large that I have here in front of me is my personal one. I've been riding it quite a bit of time. It weighs 3.18 pounds on our certified bomber scale. It comes in sizes extra small all the way up through 3XL, and the shell breaks are as follows. Extra small, small, comma, that's one shell. Medium large, comma, that's the next shell. And XL, 2X, 3X is the final and largest shell. It is DOT and ECE approved, and it retails for $769 as of the filming of this video. The technology of these helmets is really cool. Now, I mentioned earlier that Bob and Robert wanted to do something to manage angular acceleration. Let me tell you what that means. When you come off the motorcycle and your head hits the ground, most of the time it is not in a straight-on direction. Most of the time is in some sort of deflecting or glancing blow. And when that occurs, it is not the ideal circumstance for the compression of the EPS liner. And that deflection can create an energy of rotation. And that rotational energy can go through the helmet to your head. And then, of course, the end recipient of that is always the brain. And it's an important component of improving helmet safety and managing impact. And so what Bob and Robert figured out how to do was to decouple the outer shell of the helmet from the part of the helmet that touches your head. Did it in a very clever way. And let me show you what that looks like. This is one of the props that they give us dealers, and it is just two pieces of EPS foam with a little red thing, four little red things in between them. And it's a demonstration of the two outer liners, the two EPS liners and the elastomers that are used to connect them. And so this can move in a very unique way. It can twist, it can compress in different areas. It can compress and twist at the same time. I'm going to hold this out for camera too, and hopefully you'll get a good sense of it. But it's a very clever idea. And on this, which is a cutaway version of an ATR-1, it is a more built-out demonstration of that, and I'll try to explain this. If you look closely, it's cut away on the outer shell, but also the outermost EPS liner. And inside of that is a second EPS liner, and they're connected by these little elastomers. And those elastomers rest on these low friction discs, and then there are different low friction discs throughout the helmet, plus this white plastic structure that allow the two pieces to move with less friction. So once again, these two pieces, the inner EPS liner and the outer EPS liner, move independently of each other. And I'm going to try and show you that on camera too. Holding this helmet steady, and I'm moving it around, and you can see that this moves independent of the outer shell. And so that means this outer shell strikes the ground and it gets some force, and this inner one, which is touching your head, can float and that helps improve angular acceleration. And the goal of improving angular acceleration is summed up in 60 has a good bunch of literature on their website, but they sum it up in a way by they talk about TTP, and that means time to peak. And it's a very, very important part of impact management. Basically, it means you strike the ground with a certain amount of force, and we tend to think of the force as the important part, how many G's. And that is important, but if you're managing impact, what you're also trying to do is to slow that down. The longer that is, the slower that acceleration is, the better it is for the user. And that is what this helmet does. It slows down the transmission of force to the wearer. And there's some really good graphs. I'll drop them in this video, but they're also on the 60 website. I wanted to comment about the construction of helmets in general, and especially this one. If you look, the liner on this, EPS liner on it is very substantial. Looks really good. A lot of brands out there increasingly are going to building helmets with smaller and smaller shells and thinner EPS liners. And the benefit of that, the reason they're doing that is obvious. It's because it makes the helmets lighter. But I want you to think of it this way. The thinner the EPS liner, the less material that they have to work with for impact management. Now, sure, these helmets do pass certifications, but you don't just want a helmet to pass the certification. You want a helmet to function in situations that are different than the tests done for certification. So hopefully that's something that you consider in your helmet research. Following up on the technology of the ATR-2 with the construction, now this is a carbon fiber shell. Peak is adjustable for position. There's a large knob here. By the way, all the hardware on this helmet is titanium, and they give you an extra set of it and some other cool features with the helmet. They give you basically a key, a tool to remove the pieces, and then they give you an extra set of hardware. Got rubber catches here, rubber grooves for the goggles. These are 100% Armea goggles. It's a very large frame. These are mine. I use them all the time, and you see I have the nose bridge on them, and they fit rather nicely into the helmet, and it's pretty easy to get in and out. You can see what that looks like. And ventilation, which is a really important topic. Now, there's so much technical detail to this helmet that I forget the number of vents. I apologize for that, but the ventilation system in this helmet is very extensive, and it freaking works. For a few reasons. First of all, these intakes here, try to zoom this on the camera too, these intakes here are very, very effective. They flow a lot of air. I went riding with this helmet in January, and we had to hop on a little road section, a little transit section to get to the next trail. And the amount of air that was flowing through the helmet was actually giving me a little bit of a headache because it was so well vented. But the reason that it's so well vented is because air can pass very easily between these two layers, and that encourages air velocity. And that air velocity, the air moving so rapidly through the helmet, because there's space for it basically, creates a Venturi effect and kind of pulls the heat away off of your head. Liners on these are super clever. First of all, they start with a quick release, emergency release cheek pad. You can see that. Hopefully you never need it, but they can be pulled out by an EMT without disturbing you to facilitate removing the helmet, again, without disturbing the position of a wearer. The cheek pads, they are swappable across the entire range of sizes. That means cheek pads, which are different thicknesses depending upon the size of the helmet, can be swapped into any other size helmet. You can take an extra small cheek pad, swap it into a 3XL helmet. You can take a 3XL helmet, cheek pad, swap it into an extra small, a medium, a large, etc. You get the point. Now what that does is it gives a tremendous range of tuning to custom fit the helmet to your face. On top of that, the liner, which is removable, washable, antibacterial, highly vented, it has a swappability within the shell, but then there are also bridge liners. This is a really clever idea. If you are, for example, in between small and medium, 6D sells a thinner liner for the small helmet that replicates the internal dimensions of the medium. And so if you get an extra small, if you get a small and it's a little too snug, you don't have to go up to the next size. You can get a bridge liner and you can basically customize the fit. Same thing across the next shell break between large and extra large. You get a bridge liner that bridges that gap. Really clever idea. On top of that, they make an optional other liner that they call Super Cool, and I have one here. This liner looks the same as the other one, but the foam in it is extremely porous. This just flows a ton of air. It's like it's just like basically like an air filter, but a high volume air filter. And so if it is, if you live in a hot climate, you can. If you live in a cooler climate or a normal climate, you can run the regular liner. But if you live in an area where it's really hot, like Southern California or the Southwest, you can get a Super Cool liner, and there are bridge sizes available on those also. And put it in the helmet, and it breathes much better. Last part of the construction that's super cool. These helmets can be inspected by 6D and they can be rebuilt. And so you can send this helmet to the company and they can replace the entire EPS liner if necessary. As long as the shell isn't damaged, they can replace the entire EPS liner and rebuild this helmet for you. They can replace some other components also. So if you want to, you can freshen this helmet up down the road. You're making a big investment in it, but it's nice that they will actually give you that kind of after-sale support. So what do we think of the ATR-2? Well, we decided that we were going to film the ending of this video out on a ride, almost out of light, but it looks pretty bitchin' here. Hopefully it does on camera also. Comments on the ATR-2. First of all, 6D deserves lots of recognition for the fact that they reset the category, reset the bar at a very high level for impact management. 6D was the first company to come out with a helmet with rotational impact management built into it. And there are lots of other companies that have done so subsequently, a lot of imitators, and to my way of thinking, this is by far the best example of that technology. Second thing is, how's it work on the bike? Well, my path to this was through a lot of other high-end helmets. Most notably, I had an Arai VX Pro 4, I had a Bell Moto 9 Flex, I had a Climb F5. I loved all three of those helmets. The Arai had fantastic build quality, the Bell had really cool impact management technology inside, and the Climb was super light and vented super well. This thing combines all three of those into one helmet. It just does all three of those things very well. The ventilation is fantastic, the tech inside of it is really awesome, the weight is low, and the build quality of it is really good. Feels very secure on your head when you put it on. You could do some customization to the fit if you want to. That's a nice bonus. I mentioned I put some thicker cheek pads on it. That was bitchin'. So if you want to tighten up the helmet or loosen up the helmet a little bit to customize it to your particular needs, that's really easy to do. Everything about this thing is top-notch, industry-leading, and it is by far my favorite off-road helmet available. And so for that reason, those reasons I should say, it is absolutely bomber recommended. We think that you should check it out. And with that, I'm gonna pack up and try to finish this ride and head home. I have a little ways to go, so hopefully I make it before it gets dark. We are Atomic-Moto, www.atomic-moto.com. We are mission focused on getting out here and having some fun, having a good time, and finding out how products work and which ones are good. And like I like to say at the end of every video, we hope to see you out in a place like this, having a good time on your bike. Thanks for tuning in.